Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Enger, today with my fabulous co host.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Nicole, Glam Girl Bikini Coach and IFBB Bikini Pro.
So, Chris is in Florida right now. Yay.
We
She's
made it.
almost there to the stage. So, we were just talking right before we hopped on, and you're going to tentatively go on stage Eastern Standard Time at noon. Is that
That's what they
right?
say. They say the pros go on around noon on Saturday. So uh yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The
Yeah.
amateurs are going before us. So I think different than what I've seen in the past. So we'll see how many amateurs. Joe Pachula has been really advertising the show. So I assume there's going to be a good turnout of athletes, especially in Florida. There's a lot of competitors down here.
Yeah, they usually do like a hard stop for the IFBB, and then they usually give you guys more time to like kind of sleep in, relax, like do the hair and makeup. I remember in Phoenix at the women's one, it was like we were we had to go super, super early, and then the pros had like a certain time in the afternoon, and then we went last in the evening and they went first. So they got to bed on time and also
Yes.
didn't have to wake up early. So yeah, there's perks to being a pro for sure.
Yeah, the time was really nice. I remember seeing that we weren't going right in the morning, and I was like, "Oh, I hopefully it will help me sleep a little bit better, so that I'm not like, oh my gosh, I need to wake up." Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Have you seen the list at all at this
yes.
point?
Someone sent me the list, and I was like looking at it like this because I was like, "Well, I'm sure." I was like, "Do I want to see who's there?" But then my boyfriend's like, just look at it. It's gonna make you crazy if you're like, who's on it? So yeah, I did take a look at it, and I think there's like 19 or
Oh,
20 pros coming.
that's
Uh
not too bad.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a good size.
Yeah.
And I recognized a couple names. But again, I'm like still like fairly new to like IFBB, so it'll be exciting. I see it as a privilege to share the stage with other pros. So
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be cool.
I'm excited to watch. I'm going to watch the live stream from St. Louis while I'm at a volleyball tournament.
Travel, travel.
Yes. Okay. So speaking of travel, I think that's a good segue into kind of what we're going to talk about. Our main topic is habit building. And I know we've talked about habits before and developing those, but I think that a lot of people don't understand when they see the product of what a stage body looks like. They think, oh, like this person has crazy genetics, like where there's not really a secret sauce to getting to that elite level in terms of like it's putting in the everyday work, the consistent behaviors, those habits that, our brains love to be on autopilot. Our brains love exerting the least amount of energy possible. So I'm sure our listeners can resonate with the fact that they've driven to work and they have no idea how they got there. It's because it's a habit that's been ingrained, and it's kind of a scary feeling, but our brains like homeostasis. They want to be, they don't want discomfort. And so we can look at habits as good habits and then bad habits, or I should say negative habits that aren't serving us, and then positive habits that are really helping us be the person that we want to be. And I think, so I just recently finished, if you follow me online, you probably see I like always am reading some sort of nerdy book. Um, I don't know, always like a self-help nerd, but this one's called The Power to Change. And it's really good in the fact that you kind of just take an audit of like what you do every day. What habits do you have, whether they're good or bad, but just like how many hours are you spending on such and such things? So you can kind of just look at your day and think about, you know, what you repetitively do. That's kind of who you become, right? Over time. And so I think that it was a good assessment, just kind of like, brainstorming through that. So I encourage our listeners to do that, um, and kind of think about what where those are coming from. So today I wanted Chris to kind of share, because this, this is a process. I mean, she was last on stage in 2020. So there's been like a lot of different seasons, like from that last time that you competed to now. And I know like last year when we were doing the recomp and everything, it was like a, a slow shift of incorporating a little bit new kind of like habits, I guess you would say, maybe. So I was wondering if you could shed some light just on some of the ways that you maybe like this time last year, if you think back, like, what were some things that you were doing daily that maybe like weren't serving you that you somehow corrected, or, some positive habits that you just basically kept doing and kept doing consistently to, create the changes that you have. I know that's like a very big question, but
Yeah, I was thinking about how I wanted to approach it. So I know that last year, this time, I was looking to achieve some like fitness goal, like to see some change in my body, to kind of like take a leap in the dieting direction, since I really love like training and eating the improvement season. I kind of like settled there for a time, and I wanted to see some like, I don't know, I wanted to see some change within my physique. I was like, okay, it's time to, I think everybody can kind of relate when they reach that time of like, okay, it's time to like diet. Um, and but I didn't want to be trapped into like a black and white thinking. I didn't want to be like so focused on like a show date, because I knew that it would probably just create some like habitual patterns that I had in the past that weren't as like healthy and balanced. It was more just like laser focused and like everyone get out of my way. And so I decided that we would do, well, we talked about doing a mini cut, you and I, to kind of like reestablish some habits where like previously I hadn't been tracking my food because I wanted a break. And so we took different approaches to my nutrition and did it like incrementally so that I could get back into the habit of tracking my food, but not feeling restricted by tracking. And then I've been pretty consistent with training, even in my improvement season and dieting, but having an established like mini cut, like a goal, helped me have that a little bit more focused as well, knowing like, okay, like this is a specific amount of time. So I need to be getting to the gym 5 times a week, training, these body parts and this frequency. And also it helped me incorporate some cardio back in again, because if you're like me, you don't love cardio. And so it was like a good reason to kind of like test the waters of establishing some of these, or putting some of these habits back into play without the huge pressure of a show.
yeah, I remember specifically, I think when you kind of made that commitment to say like I want to recomp, I feel
Yeah.
like protein was like loosely tracked, and that was like one of the macronutrients that we really focused on. Do you have any tips for our listeners on like if they've just been kind of under eating protein and been slacking on that aspect? Because I think sometimes that can happen. It's easy to do where like maybe you're under eating, you're not like even overeating or whatever, but that goal as bodybuilders, obviously, I think it played a huge role in you doing that recomp, like trading out muscle for fat and things like that. But
Yeah, I think I like wasn't consistent. Like I would make sure that I had protein at like breakfast, lunch, dinner. But when you uh when you're intentional with your protein intake, that's not always enough. And especially in the sport, that's not always enough unless you're eating like I wasn't eating the what I needed to basically with like protein amounts. So like even if you eat like just protein at breakfast, lunch, dinner, but you're hitting your protein goal, that's fine. I'm not saying like you can't do that. It was just that I wasn't tracking anything. So my loose tracking in the beginning before starting the mini cut was like, just have protein at breakfast, just have protein at lunch, and just have some at dinner, where the amounts weren't equivalent to what I actually needed to see the recon process happen. So even like just kind of like going through my day after like I hadn't been tracking and putting in like what have I been eating and kind of taking an evaluation of like what actually have I been consuming. And then once you have like a baseline of knowing where you're at, you can like make changes and adapt. So I could say like, okay, like some days I'm eating like 100 grams of protein, some days I'm eating, I don't know, like 120, some days I'm eating like 70. Like let's at least make that consistent. Let's set a goal for that, make it consistent. Because this sport does require a lot of that, like, I don't know, like consistency basically is the only
Yeah.
word I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's what it is, basically.
So yeah, so like we had like macros set, and the first thing, like you said, Amy, the first thing to focus on was like the protein, and sometimes it was just like a protein and calorie goal,
Mhm.
so that there were again some baselines that your total energy intake was being calculated, and then that protein goal was being calculated as well, and carbs and fats I could have a little flexibility with, so I didn't feel like everything had to be so like precise. And that was like a nice segue into like tracking nutrition.
So I just want to point out to our listeners that basically you don't want to start everything all at once. And so, kind of going to this 15 tips that we're going to kind of touch on a little bit today on developing good habits that work. Number one is start with small adjustments. And I think that you really are saying that there with,
Mhm.
there would be, we would, even just start with like 5 days, you tracking that, and then like the weekends giving you, but like making small steps to get there, and stacking these things on top of it. And one of the things that the author of this book that I just read, The Power of Change, he says he encourages people to just try something for 2 minutes. So if you're going to run a marathon and you're completely out of shape, like you're not going to go out and run 26 miles like as a training session. He's like, just go jog for 2 minutes,
Right.
and then maybe like increase it to 3 the next day. I know that there's probably not a lot of runners that are can relate to that, but in your example with the protein, I think that's a good one. I think the same thing with like just trying to pick one single thing. I don't want to like call anybody out, but I just recently had one of my longtime competitors kind of like take a little bit of a break because life, and she came back and she wanted to do all of the things, like put back in place all of her habits of being like what she was doing as a competitor. And it's so different. It's so like polarizing. So I just said, okay, I looked at her check-in journal and I saw that she was only drinking like hardly any water. So I said, okay, let's make this week just the goal to get an ounce per pound of body weight. And we're
Mhm.
just going to tackle that this week. And
Yeah.
I said, the next week we can think of another little, habit that we can do. And one thing that she did was she put like a visual of a big water jug and she measured, because you don't know where you're going if you don't take an audit. So like, I don't think she realized how much she was under drinking until she actually took that audit of the check-in. So I was like, okay, this is probably a pretty easy goal to, a habit to get back going. It's not like super difficult. I mean, not as difficult as like, going to like from like zero working out to like going to the gym where, like 5 days a week or something like that. But like just starting out small, and maybe it's like you've taken time off the gym. I know that wasn't like an issue that you were talking about, but a lot of people, they don't have trouble with the nutrition part. I mean, I wish I was that way, but I'm not like you where I'm like the gym is easy, like to always go no matter what my nutrition, if it's off or it's on, because it makes me feel it's like an instant gratification, right? Because it gives you those endorphins, makes you feel better. But some people aren't like that. They get to a point where they stop working out completely. And if you try to put too much in and you're not just like starting out with core exercises and body weight, like it can be a lot for your body to handle. And
Yes.
you can get really sore and like even
And
injure
then
yourself if
yeah.
you're not like strengthening yourself from the core. But that's
Yeah.
just
And then
my
you
thoughts
lose,
on that first one.
yeah, it makes sense. And then you lose momentum because you are now recovering from going too hard, too fast with workouts. And then it's just a perpetual cycle. So that just rings true of what you're saying about like making those small adjustments at first.
Yeah. Okay, so where are habits born? I just wanted to go over these four things. So one is the cue, two is the craving, three is the response, and four is the reward. So I kind of talked about like the reward is how the behavior makes you feel. So for me, like working out makes me feel good, but also eating sweets in that short term kind of makes me feel good too, because you get that dopamine, right? So it's just like you have to have your brain um look at like your environment. Maybe like you're spending too much time on social media. I had a friend recently tell me like you can have like an app that limits your amount of time. It puts a timer on your certain apps that you use and things like that. So maybe in your audit, you find, I'm on social media too much. The reward is that dopamine rush to your brain. You are craving entertainment. So think of a way that you can entertain yourself that is going more towards your goals rather than just scrolling on social media. Um, what are some other examples that you could think of in that regard, like the craving? I know one example they gave was like driving through a fast food joint on the way home. The craving is obviously greasy comfort food. The response is get the food in the drive through, and then the reward is like that dopamine rush that you have. So I don't know if you can think of any other examples like triggers that or things that maybe like you had going on last year that you've kind of like modified and changed your behaviors um in that regard.
Yeah. So I think a lot of my habits from like what I can think of were like adding stuff back in versus like trying to avoid
Okay.
anything. Um, and maybe just like adjusting it into like healthy amounts, maybe.
Uh-huh.
So, like instead of like, I love ice cream,
Yeah.
ice cream people.
Yes,
Um,
we are. We are very alike.
so,
That's my vice.
like thinking about like, I'm going to start a mini cut and I'm going to cut out all ice cream
Mhm.
or like no sugar. I'm going to eat only whole foods was like, I wouldn't have lasted to be
Mhm.
perfectly honest. Um, but knowing that like okay I am going to on the weekends like kind of like we were talking about I only want to track protein, I only want to track calories so that I can fit some like fun foods in there without being so like anal about carbs and fats and how like will this serving of ice cream actually fit in there? Like I had a little bit of flexibility in that aspect. And so like maybe kind of shifting into like not having ice cream every night and just having it on like 2 nights a week. And I could pick whatever week like nights I want. I think the biggest thing for me was being able to have a choice and have flexibility so that my habits I felt like I could formulate and fit for my lifestyle and that type of freedom was like that was what I think helped me gain some consistency as well too and like I mean honestly I've been eating chocolate up till I don't even know maybe like a couple weeks ago every day in my prep like just keeping things that I really like and enjoy in there so it's not so um
Black and white,
yeah
on and off.
exactly yeah
It's a dimmer switch, right?
exactly
So
exactly
I feel like I saw on your story or something, you had these like little balls of ice cream that
oh yeah
are they the Yasso? Is that what you tried? Because I haven't had
yeah
the Yasso. I just make my own like protein ice cream at home, but What
Yeah,
are those
there
like?
it's frozen yogurt, and I actually like, so yeah, TC and I always like to, he's a big ice cream person too. So we like to have
Yes.
like dessert
And
together. Like our foundation is built on sugar. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but those like little Yasso balls, I think I got them at Wegmans, or Whole Foods, maybe. No, I think it was Wegmans. But I couldn't find them anywhere. We just were like on one of our trips, and he's like, "Oh, I really want ice cream," and I was like, "Okay, well, I don't know what I can actually fit in my macros." And they're little like frozen yogurt balls, and they're covered in hard chocolate. So if you like ice cream that has like that hard chocolate shell, you're getting that experience, but in like these like six, or eight little bites. I don't remember how many are in the like tray. Um, and that was like a nice way for me to be able to like have like portion control. And
Mhm.
also was less calories, like eating that whole entire thing than a pint of ice cream, which you can't buy ice cream any smaller than like those tiny little cups, which I feel like, what's the point
That's,
of that?
yeah. You're like, what is this, Matt? What is this
It's
noise?
just a tease. This is
Get
not
this
fair.
out of here.
But like I could have like those individual bites and experience like having the ice cream and like the hard chocolate shell and like those types of things in a season where I was like transitioning out from like being able to have high volume of like food, but I still wanted to have a nice treat. So there
Yeah,
are
and
ways.
I think it makes it like more of a dining experience in a way
Yeah.
because you're it's kind of similar to how I like break up parts of my meal. I never like mix things together. I eat them separately and
Yes.
like experience them and be like when you're really present with your food and it takes a while, right, to get through those six balls probably.
Yeah.
So then you're allowing your brain to trigger like, okay, I'm full because it takes like 20 minutes to do that. And then you're not, I mean, it's so much faster, like with a spoon and
Yeah.
a jar of ice cream or peanut butter, whichever your vice is, or if they're both, um, to just have those like
Yeah.
little frozen portions. I like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and people with the meal thing, they'll be like, "You're eating again?" Because I'll just get up to go get my next course. I'm like, "Oh my
Your next
gosh."
course. I love it.
They're like, "You're eating so much," and really, I'm probably eating less than they are, but because I'm having to go up, get up, and prepare the next quote
Uh-huh.
unquote course, like you said, it makes you feel like you're eating forever. And my
Yes.
dad is always like, "I wish I could eat as much as you," and I'm like, "Dad, like you could probably eat more than me."
Yeah, exactly. I know
But
it's a process. I'm like constantly microwaving my next course and like
yeah,
bringing it to the table, like as my family is eating out of their like giant plate or like bowl. But I'm like,
the ladle.
here's the next tapas meal coming through. Like, here's my
Exactly.
sweet potato appetizer.
Yes,
Yeah,
I love that. Yes,
I love
yes,
it.
yes.
Okay, so on our list here of 15, we kind of talked about 2 and 3 already, but number 4 is identify triggers and obstacles. So when we talk about cues, so we talked about that in this 4, the first one's like the cue. So maybe there's a place that initiates a habit loop. So maybe
Mhm.
you're always like it's like you're home after work and like you have that like craving for whatever it is that's like not serving you. Maybe you're exhausted from the day and you reach for some alcohol or something to kind of like relax you. Um, time, time and place pretty much go hand in hand. So what time of the day, are you a morning person? Like, do you exercise early in the morning? Um, do you tend to worry more and get more anxiety at night before you go to bed or whatever that is? But time and place are some triggers. And then also like your mood. So mood can be just like, if we're angry, we're alone. So we're lonely, we're hangry. We've probably all felt that as competitors at some point or another. A lot of times that mood can shift like our self-destructive behaviors, right? Or, I mean, our mood could also shift our positive behaviors. Like if we're feeling good, then we're
Yeah.
more likely to do the habits that we love that are serving us. And then number 4 is moments. So just like you have a fight with your significant other, or you're like triggered by something, like you know, failed a test at school if you're in school, but you're like feeling disapproval. So you grab that carton of ice cream and just kind of like dig in as a coping strategy. So number 4 is moments, and then 5 is people. So just unfortunately, like the people that were around, and fortunately, depending on who we choose, it can really feed into who we become and who our influence is. So with those 5 things, is there anything about, so you definitely are on the road a lot this year, you know, with having like variables of your places quite a bit. Do you ever find that triggering? And like, what are some ways that you've noticed like some of these cues have popped up in relation to prep, and kind of like how you've managed through those with the prep? So I know I give you like 5 different points kind of to speak on, but I don't know if you have examples of one or all.
Yeah, so my personality loves consistency and routines. I just, that makes me feel safe and secure, and that's how I've done a lot of my preps in the past. And there is something to be said about like just having like a consistent routine when you're trying to accomplish so much, especially like career women, moms. Like there needs to be some type of like routine, I think, just to get everything done. And kudos to all of you ladies, because I know that that's like few and far between that actually everything runs exactly as planned. But I know for me with travel, some of the things that I or we make as like an important aspect of how we plan it out is number one, sleep. I would say is like one of the most important things. We try and make sure that we are like putting ourselves in a situation where we are going to be able to have a block of time for travel, also stop and be able to like accomplish our workout. So we will schedule our workout around like our travel schedule. And we are always intentional about like when we're going to arrive at a hotel so that we can actually like wind down, go to sleep, and then plan the next day that we get up and get on the road again. So if there's been times where we have gotten into somewhere late, and it's that feeling of like you don't know what need to take care of first. You're hungry, you want to get a shower, you want to go to sleep, you like just don't know what to do, and you're just a cranky, miserable person. Like we try, he's much more, he's better than I am, he's more flexible. But for the piece of the pack, it's Diego knows too. Mom needs to go to bed at a certain time. It's good just to have like that, like just to know what you need, basically. If you need that, you really, that's just part of who you are. You need to have that downtime to be able to actually go to sleep and get restful sleep and then wake up the next morning and be your best quality self. Like plan that in. And that's a big part of what's important for me. It makes me a better coach for my clients. It makes me a better girlfriend. It makes me a better athlete. Aside from all the benefits that sleep actually brings you as an athlete, like just for my personality and my mentality, it's key. So with travel, we really try. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to get to a destination because we're not doing 12-hour days where we're driving. We're chunking it up, and we maybe need to save a little bit more money to have those like stopping points where we can stop and get some rest. But that's number one and non-negotiable. And I think for both of us, it just makes the trip more enjoyable too. So yeah. And then like there's other aspects of, like I mentioned, we will like map out where we're gonna stop and hit a gym. Like we don't want to be working out at like 7 o'clock at night because we're both like fried at that point. But we're both not like super early morning working out people. Like we like to wake up and have breakfast and do some work. So we kind of like we strategize together on like our workout time, and that's a non-negotiable stop in our travels as well. Like we know we're going to drive 3 hours, we're going to get to a destination, and that's going to be great because we're going to be able to move our bodies, get some fluid, use the bathroom, walk Diego. Like it's an intentional stop. And then just packing food. Like I like food anxiety, I think, of like just running out of food because especially like deep into prep, like I think a lot of
Yes.
athletes can understand that. But making sure that we have our cooler, like our plug-in cooler that runs off the car battery and has like stocked chicken breast or our protein sources, some frozen veggies. Like there's just sometimes having that stuff, even if you don't use it, because some people are like, well, I'm not deep into prep. I don't want to have to like do that. I want to be able to kind of eat out and choose some different things and still hit my macros. That's fine, but it's also really good to have that as a backup, because there are many times where you'll just be in a situation where your options are like Subway or Pizza Hut, and like which is really fulfilling to you and which is actually going to help you with your goals, where you can just kind of fall back on like, you know what, I have protein and veggies, and I carbs are easy to buy on the road as well too. So yeah, just planning, I think, and I think doing it so often, we kind of just know what type of routine we need to be in when we're on the road making those trips, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been like these last 3 weekends, I'm basically like on the road with my
Yeah.
daughter with volleyball, but I also like same thing once shows start ramping up, there's several weekends where it's like back to back, like in July. And you just have to plan out your gym time, like for like leg day. So for example, like the hotel that I was in this weekend, it just had dumbbells and cardio. So I saved my shoulder day because I know that I can do that. And just kind of planning out your rest day, like on the one day that I had to wake up early to get my daughter to the
Yes.
games, like I planned my rest day because I'm like, I'm at the point where I don't wake up, and you'll probably be shocked by this because I know you've woken up with me super early in the morning to like get a workout in before stuff. But like I'm now in the mindset. I think I've gotten older or something, or more, I don't know, definitely not more mature, but um I guess with my old age, I realize that sleep is sometimes more important than getting a workout in, and just
Yes.
like taking a rest day and is more beneficial, and
Yes.
you're more likely to make better decisions with well rested, like with your nutrition is what I've noticed is like when you wake up super early like that, you just when you're tired, and tired is another type of obstacle or trigger for me, with eating. I feel like I don't know if you feel the same way, um, but yeah,
Yes.
number 5 is just like take time to think about what's holding you back. So like do these assessments, kind of assess your situation. Like, what are the things that I need to do to take care of myself so that I'm in a good position, that my brain is not worn out from XYZ, and kind of setting yourself in a good place, making sure your times are not cueing you for a negative response. They're cueing you for positive responses, like your mood, same thing. And then those moments. So, um, that's kind of what I
Good.
wanted to share about the book, but what was that?
I wanted to add something really quickly
Yeah.
because what you mentioned about like making that decision to have a rest day over a workout day. I
Mhm.
think that's actually like a milestone of maturity as an athlete because that's something that I've struggled with as well. I'm a very like, here's my instruction, my job is to execute it, and there's no excuses. Like, I've been the person who like my workout has run short and will go back to the gym to do like the last superset of exercises because it has to be completed. And I think that there is a level, I think it depends on like how long you've been doing this. There is a level where you do need to have that consistency to be able to formulate the habits and know that like silly things will not be an excuse to not like accomplish something. So like, oh, I just feel tired, like or because I stayed up super late and I made this decision, and so now I don't want to go to the gym and train. Like, there are certain things, like I think when you're a new competitor, you just have to like know that there is no excuse. I do need to go do these things. But I think like once you've established those habits and they've become ingrained in you, then there's a maturity aspect of understanding your body and knowing like you said, Amy, like we
What are your
both know what it's
triggers?
like. You have events coming up and you need to know like how to like make decisions that are actually going to be like, it may not, you may need to take 2 3 rest days because of travel, the event, and like what's going on, but you know that trying to squeeze in a workout in the midst of all of that activity is actually going to cause more stress, interrupt, more your sleep. It's going to cause like other anxieties. And so like actually the better decision is to take those rest days. Like that's something that I've
Mhm.
had to learn to do, especially going to like clients shows and stuff like that. It's just it causes more stress and takes away from like my sleep if I'm trying to squeeze too much in. So like that's I think and I'm still learning that. I still never get it all the way right. I still like feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. Like that's what I should be doing. But I think that that's great that you have made those like adjustments because I think that a true athlete has that good intuition and that's developed over time and you can make those decisions knowing that you're doing the best for yourself and you're not failing because you know you're taking that inventory like you've been talking about and making the change. So I don't know
Well,
if that
thank you.
makes sense, but
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, I definitely think that it's taken me time even just to take a rest day. I mean,
yeah,
I've been doing it for the last several years, but I mean, when I was first starting out, it was just like team all day, every day. And that's
yeah,
not good for your body either. You're
right,
not going to have a 100% workout if you're never allowing your muscles to recover and your CNS, and
yes,
you're always going to have like at best an 80% intensity, in my opinion. And I never learned that until I actually took the time to sharpen the saw, so to speak,
yeah, yeah,
by taking a rest day and then realizing like, man, because I allowed my body to recover, this like leg workout is so much better. And, you know, it just, your intensity goes up when you allow your time to heal, basically.
higher efficiency. Yeah, more is not always better, I feel like.
Yeah. I was just thinking along the lines of nutrition, and um I was talking with a competitor that she's just starting out. She's never competed, and we were going out to a restaurant, and she was having like a lot of anxiety about what like she's like, I've never eaten out. I can't do this on prep. Like I need to stick to my foods and everything. I'm like, no, like let's take a look at the menu. And she saw like, okay, there's a turkey breast, there's like a salad, there's salmon that's grilled, like there's options. And it's one of those things too, just like how you were saying, planning out the workouts, like knowing, okay, I'm gonna be on the road and this gym's not gonna be as great, or like whatever, like planning out what workouts. But you also need to kind of do that for meals too. If you're gonna have some semblance of a life. If you're in bodybuilding, you need to be able to do this year round. It's not something that you can just do in small increments and take a break and be successful. So it is the prep life, right? So when you're thinking about that too, like, I mean, for example, I knew like we were going out for a celebration dinner with the team on Saturday. Um, and we often do that with our girls, with the athletes at the shows and things like that. And so you just have to kind of like plan the rest of your day, and it just takes a little bit of preparation, but like just planning ahead and making sure that you're saving, some macros for like some healthy choices, or if you have like a free meal or something like that. But just kind of planning those things out so you don't get anxiety about food, and making sure that it works. Because the other one was get support from your family and friends. And I think that the more you drain and tap that avenue of like not supporting your social life and like being present with your family in certain activities, I think it's hard to try to get that buy-in on them supporting your goals if you're constantly telling them no and like being a hermit and not like participating. But
Mhm.
do you have any thoughts about like just like how things like with your family and friends, like how positive experiences with habit change that you've experienced with them, or maybe like some negative ones to kind of avoid?
Yeah, so I think that with something that I tell my clients is to definitely have the conversation with people beforehand if you can. Like if you're going to go hang out with your girlfriend, and typically in the past your activity is like breakfast and mimosas, like just talk to her and say like, I'm really excited to like spend some time with you, and like hit our breakfast place. Just want you to know that like I'm working on this like fitness goal, and I've kind of removed, like alcohol from my nutrition right now, and like just kind of like let her know what's going on so that she's not like going to this event and expecting a certain type of situation, and then it's harder to say no. It's harder when you're like in front of the person and they have the expectation, and you're like, by the way, just like if you
Right.
have a close relationship with someone, just have the conversation. I think is the first thing to do. Like if we're visiting family, I'll let them know, like, hey, by the way, I'm like 6 weeks out from a show, and so my nutrition is going to be a little bit strict, but I'm really looking forward to having time together, and maybe there's some other activities that we could that are not like food central, that you can suggest to the person as well too, so they feel like you're putting in an effort and not just like taking away. Um, and then you will have people that will either make a comment, either about like your physique or your eating habits. It happens to me a lot. But I just know that this is who I am. And that's one thing that I did do before I started dating TC. I told him just like, I just want you to know like some non-negotiables about me. I'm a bikini competitor. This is what my lifestyle looks like. This is not going to change. So if you're okay with that, then like great. If
I
not,
love
it's
that.
totally okay. No hard feelings. Like I don't want to make you uncomfortable. This is just something that I do and it's part of who I am. So I think when we also reach that aspect of it being part of our identity, just hard in the beginning because you're like not sure, like, am I a competitor? I haven't even gotten on stage yet. And I'm like doing all these habits my family's like confused about. Um, just like stick to your guns. Like even if it's like a health goal, you don't know who's watching and who's being influenced by it. And even if they're making a negative comment, a lot of times it's coming from insecurities in themselves. Most recently, someone had said like, "Oh my gosh, you're skinny, too skinny. You're just so skinny." And I just kind of like stood there and smiled, and I was like, first of all, I'm wearing my boyfriend's clothes because they're really baggy. So it's making the situation look so much worse. And also, like, I get it. Like, this is not what you're used to. This is, and I know that I'm not. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, I know that as like a bodybuilding competitor, I'm in a great spot. So, like, whatever that perception is, that's okay. That's your perception based off of your experiences. And I didn't even say anything. I just stood there and smiled. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to eat more. And then you just kind of have to like shift perspective and realize like for it to be okay for you, you have to understand that that person is perceiving it from a different perspective, and whether they come around or not, like just being solid and knowing that like this is who I am. And I think you have a good example of this as well too, Amy, of like habits and people that you're around, and them kind of like coming to acceptance, like you were talking about your step goal before the organic
Yeah.
step.
Yeah. Before we talk about that though, it's funny because my next book that I've been listening to is called The Compound Effect book. And I actually thought of you. I just remember when you like kind of before you and TC got together, and you were dating people, and I thought it was a really cool idea for you. Like you basically took an assessment of basically like what your ideal person is, but in that you like basically it was like your non-negotiable list. Like, so you had that established in your mind. So I almost feel like doing that process like led you to TC and your great relationship because you already took your like you audited what you wanted in a relationship and that allowed you to find them. So maybe we'll do the compounding effect book later, but um yeah, just this weekend it was funny because um like a lot of the moms, I know a lot of them because, you know, Addie's, my daughter has played with like their daughters and now they're on like other teams. And one of the moms, she was like, oh, you're getting in your steps. And she's not even on the team currently, but they just kind of know now, like, you know, I'm not just like wandering around with my headphones on like a weirdo, but like I'm getting in my steps, you know, and trying to get my exercise in. But I think people just start to recognize like, you know, once you're in a certain, you're making certain choices, like I feel like once they understand that and know that, then they're pretty cool about it. Like you were saying with the mimosa thing, like I'm sure that friend would be fine with you drinking coffee while she's drinking a mimosa. Like you're enjoying each other's company. But I think sometimes we get stuck in our heads, like we need to just like stop all social situations and like have all these controllables. And, you know, I might get triggered by this, or like I can't be in this certain place or around these certain people. But just kind of thinking about it in a way like that you can get a cute positive response rather than a negative is like what I think is important at the end of the day. So organically we've kind of covered a lot of these 15. You know, I think the last one, number 15, is just focus on the one habit at a time. That kind of like pulls it all together and kind of summarizes that. I just feel like if you can just start small and, you know, tackle a few things at a time, do it in bite-sized chunks rather than trying to go like, you know, a 180 from who you used to be to who you are now. It's even for high level competitors like Chris, like you could see like this was a process. She's in a totally different spot now since last year. And it's just, it takes time and it takes like slow incremental you know, steps, but having clear in your mind, like what it is you want and making sure that you're setting up your environment to and your habits so that they're on autopilot eventually. But yeah, just taking it one step at a time. Do you have anything to add before we sign off on that?
Yeah, I think you don't even need, like, I remember last year, I wasn't even sure if I was going to compete again. So I don't think you have to know like the whole timeline of all the things that you want to do. Um, and sometimes if you're overwhelmed by that idea, it's good to just establish like a shorter term goal, like we did. Like I was like, all right, well, I do know I want to get some of this body fat off, so let's do a mini cut, and just taking it in those types of steps. But you're right, Amy, like having a goal is what is going to help you like keep those habits. Because just like ambiguous, like I want to be healthy, you should know like why you want to be healthy, so that when it comes time when you're faced with those things of like, I'm emotionally charged or I'm facing this temptation, you can go back to like knowing, okay, but I did say when I was not emotionally pulled in these different directions that this is what I wanted. So in a stable state, this is what I want. So I need to kind of like revisit that. Um, and that's where I think sometimes like our emotions can dictate like what we want in the moment. And so like having that established, I think is very important. And just knowing that it's okay to have like, a short-term goal and not have like a long-term thing. Because as soon as I like did the mini cut and I was like, oh, okay, like yeah, this is like creating momentum and I'm liking where I'm going, then it can like you can build off of it from there. But yeah, I think definitely having the freedom to make some decisions of how quickly I wanted to establish some habits. And that was just coming from a place of feeling very like overwhelmed by doing all of the things, and I think is good advice as well. Hope is not lost if you're feeling like, oh, I just can't get back into all of these things again. Just do like pick 2 or 3 things, focus on that. And I also would remind myself, like, if I wanted to derail from the consistency of doing the habit over time, I was putting myself back a couple places by having to start over the habit again. So like just saying to myself, like, by telling myself that I'm going to stick to this plan, it's going to actually help this be easier next time around. Um, so yeah, there were a lot of like mentality shifts, but I think we covered a lot of the big basics.
Yeah. And I mean, progress isn't linear. So you're going to have like some setbacks and, just at that time that a setback occurs, do another audit. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something you're missing that is making this harder on your brain than it needs to be. And you're exerting more energy than you actually are really like truly recognizing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I encourage all of our listeners, let us know if you end up doing this audit and it kind of helps with you establishing some new habits and routines that are positive and impact your life. We always like to hear from our listeners. So we always appreciate any sort of ratings or reviews. Just helps other people that are interested in the same topics find us. So that's the only payment we ask from you is just, keeping it ad free. We're going to do our best, but we just want other people to be helped out too. So if you can pass it along, share it on Instagram. We're found at Prep Life Podcast and at Glam Girl Bikini on IG. And then if you'd like to apply for your unicorn prep, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. So with that, this is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini signing off with my fabulous co-host.
And this is Chris Nicole, Glam Girl Bikini Coach and IFBB Bikini Pro. Thanks for listening, everyone.